I never realized just how true that breakup analogy was for the Packers and Rodgers. Because now that the split is happening, the Packers got to go shopping. They got to furnish their new place. And they got $3. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I'm your host, John Delray. Yes, as we continue to await word on what the compensation is going to be in an inevitable Aaron Rodgers trade, the Green Bay Packers still have to figure out how to put a roster on the field. And look, this is not a team that's 100% treating this like it's going to be a complete rebuild. Because if that were the case, why are you restructuring contracts, pushing one forward? I know you got to be operational, but they're pushing a lot forward to the tune of over $40 million thus far. So the Green Bay Packers are not necessarily acting like a team that just goes, oh, we got a young quarterback, let's pack her in and be terrible this year. No, they're really not doing that. They're still continuing to operate. Now, I say all that with the understanding of the Green Bay Packers are very, very monetarily strapped. And despite what the naysayers may have you believe, part of the reason they're monetarily strapped is because for the last couple of years of going all in, they shoved a lot of money forward. And plus, you add on the impending departure of Aaron Rodgers, and that adds about $9 million to the cap. Not space, to the cost. So trading Aaron Rodgers does cost them money right now. Understand that. So options are limited. Even if this team is still going for it this year, options are still limited. So I've got a couple of news items that I just want to cover quick before we get to kind of this free agent who's still left preview. What spots can they fill? Just want to get to the news quick. Here we have number one long snapper has been signed. This is the first free agent signed by the Packers this year, or this offseason, I should say. Matt Orzech from the Rams. They signed him to a 3-year contract. Generally, if you're signing to a long snapper to a 3-year contract, it's a pretty large commitment. I don't think that means great things for Jack Coco's potential employment with the Green Bay Packers this year. And per the grading, he does work out to be an upgrade. So, it looks like the Packers found their long snapper there. Number two, they did sign another player. This one just getting announced today. He was in for a visit yesterday, announced today. Going to be a 6th-year player in the National Football League from the San Francisco 49ers, Tarvarius Moore. He's kind of an interesting prospect. Very, very high RAS grade coming out of college, a 9.22. He was a 3rd-round pick by the Niners. In 2020, he started a bunch at safety, over half the season, I believe, if my memory's serving correctly. And then in 2021, he ruptured his Achilles. Didn't play a single snap. Now, this past year, we know that a lot of times Achilles injuries can be more than just 1-year injuries. Kind of like years ago when the ACL used to be a thing, that you would tear your ACL, be out for an entire year, and then that first year back was kind of like a warm-up year, and then the next year is who you really are. That's kind of the modern-day Achilles injury. You miss an entire year, and then you're really just figuring out how to run again, how to move on that Achilles. So I think the Packers are hoping for some upside here in the form of Tarvarius Moore. He did start a bunch of 2020. It was up and down for the Niners at that time. But the truth is here, at worst, this is a special team signing. You've got a hyper-athletic safety who's logged a lot of special team snaps. For the 4 years that he was active for Frisco, he's got at least 220 special team snaps every year. He ran a 4.32 40. This is a guy, if that Achilles is fully healed, who is fast. Now, what does that mean for the current Green Bay Packers? Well, they've got 2 safeties who seem to fit this role already. 3 if you include Amos. But Dallin Leavitt, Rudy Ford, signing Moore probably is as a replacement for one of those 2. Now, if they're looking at this just as exclusively as a special teamer, that's probably Leavitt. But if they're looking at this as a guy who can play some defense, that's more so Ford. So going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Nonetheless, though, Tarvarius Moore signed by the Green Bay Packers, probably spelling the end of either Leavitt or Ford in the safety room. And then the last bit of news, Rasul Douglas. I mentioned a restructure earlier. Yes, they have max restructured Rasul Douglas. The max restructure meaning that they did add on void years to get his number as low as possible. They're saving about $3.3 million on the cap because of this move and pushing more money out into the future this time for Rasul. Is Rasul going to play corner this year? Is he going to play safety? Is he going to play somewhere in between? Yet to be determined. You know, what that does mean, though, pushing out that $3 million is it leaves the Packers with about $25 million in cap space. That'll be a little bit lower when you factor in the Moore and Orzek signings, but neither one of those should be substantial signings. But still, you're looking at a team with about $25 million in available cap. But kiss 9 of that goodbye once you trade Aaron Rodgers. Your draft is going to cost you about $11 million, which is going to go up if you get any premium picks from the Jets. Whew, and there goes 20 of your 25 right off the bat. So the Green Bay Packers have got to look at this fiscally responsibly because there just isn't that much room. And you may be saying to yourself, well, there's room there. There's always room on the cap. There's different things they can do, different restructures. Not really. Not anymore. The Packers have basically executed almost every single thing they can do to bring down the cap number. Now, are there some way out of the box things? Sure. But there's only a couple that are left that are really practical. And, well, one is Yosh Nijman. You've got him on the second round tender. One would be trading him. That would save you about $4 million. One would be restructuring Pat O'Donnell, your punter. Not netting you much at all. One would be extending Rashawn Gary. Now, depending on how the extension is done, you could save yourself somewhere there like $3 to $6 million in cap space right now. So, again, even do all of those, and you're looking at 10, 11 million more? And that's if you do all of that? And then to get anything more than that, you're looking at having to release guys or do some really drastic things, sign guys to extensions earlier than you historically have, some really, really kind of out-of-the-box things for the Packers. So this is a team that is very, very cash-strapped. However, it's a team with a lot of holes and a lot of open roster spots. I mean, a lot. Off the top of my head, right now, per the roster, you could list off tight end is obviously a need, especially considering that Robert Tonyan went and signed with the Chicago Bears. Yeah, I didn't put that in the news because he's not a Packer anymore, but Tonyan is gone, signing with the Chicago Bears. Another Packer who is gone, this broke just a little bit ago, Dean Lowry, signing with the Minnesota Vikings, because players who only play for the Packers only know how to go sign with other teams in the division unless you're Alan Lazard. So Dean Lowry gone, but more important for these purposes, Robert Tonyan gone. So that means tight end is now officially a monstrous need. How about defensive back, where Amos is a free agent savage? You don't even confidently know what position he's going to play, plus just depth even after re-signing Nixon. How about edge, where Rashawn Gary's due to miss half the year? I know that's talked about as one of the highest potential of like early round draft picks, but edge, D-line, wide receiver. Goody said they're bringing in a vet. We know that there's going to be a vet wide receiver. Where are they going to come from? Because you can't draft a vet wide receiver. So there's a lot of holes on this roster and not a lot of money to do it. And we know that the draft is going to be a huge part of the roster building for the roster this year. There's no doubt about that. But still, the draft is going to be 10 guys, 12 out of about 30 spots that you need to fill right now. There's a lot of work to be done, and a number of these guys could be had pretty cheap, especially if they're re-signing to Green Bay. I'm thinking like an Eric Wilson at linebacker. Yeah, if they do re-sign Levitt, like all these are going to be fairly cheap signings, but still, nonetheless, these are the holes right now. So the Green Bay Packers have got to get plugging away on filling some of these holes. So I found 4 free agents at 2 positions. I'm just going to cover 2. 4 free agents that may come in, fill a void in Green Bay. Now, every single one of these free agents would be of starter quality. It is going to have some cost to it. But if you're looking for a big splash, this is about as splashy as Green Bay may get on the free agent market. So let's take a look. One position that I selected to look at was safety. And one of them may not even be a big guy. Their big splash may be a re-signing, and that happens to be Adrian Amos. Bill Huber for Sports Illustrated did report that the Green Bay Packers are interested in bringing back Amos, and there's some real questions here. I mean, Adrian Amos, there's no doubt, no one can deny he was in decline this year. Or statistically speaking, he wasn't as strong as he had been in years past. So the question is it because Amos is getting older? Is he getting slower? Or was it coaching? Because we know the secondary on the whole didn't perform up to expectations. And I mean, really, like if you look at his positional splits, they're about the same as they've been every year. So it's not like he was playing out of position. It's not like they were asking him to do a ton of different things that they hadn't done before. So why the decline? Keep in mind, too, the Green Bay Packers already have about $5 million in dead cap from Adrian Amos' last contract with them. And the deadline to recoup most of that was already passed. So what are we doing here? Now, if you're re-signing the Adrian Amos of 4 years ago, and you can get him at a price point of, at this point, probably about $6 million because, Julian Love just signed for about that. Other safeties have been around $8 million. Bates at 16, obviously the exception. He was the big name. But a lot of the safeties that we're seeing that are still in the market are signing for something like $6 to $8 million. So if you can get Amos for something like $6, it's worth consideration, right? But you have to answer the question of why did the decline occur? Is it because of the friction between Joe Barry and Jerry Gray? Is it because he's getting older? We don't know. They got to answer that question to have interest at all. The other safety that I would bring your attention to is John Johnson, recently released by Cleveland. Now, he's a very interesting player. He's 28 years old. He's considered mostly at this time a true center fielder, which is something the Green Bay Packers have lacked for a long time. Again, compensation would be something in the line of about $6-7 million, somewhere in that area. And the appeal here is he's a true center fielder. Green Bay hasn't had that in a while because they've had Amos who's in the box and they've had Savage who's this whatever every single year. A true center fielder could make a difference for their secondary. However, I will note his strongest season in the NFL was in 2020. A couple good things about that was it happened to be in the system of Joe Barry. Now, Barry wasn't coordinator for the Rams, of course, but Barry was with the Rams. Like, you see the connection I'm making here. Johnson was with the Rams, and he was at his most successful, as was Barry. Okay, beyond that, though, what's the downside? Well, back when he was with the Rams, he played basically the same snap division that Adrian Amos did. About half in the box, about half at free safety. So I'm not advocating for them to sign both. If they sign Johnson, it probably means Amos isn't back, because it seems like even though Johnson has the reputation of a true center fielder, his best play probably came when he was splitting time. So again, questions. But there's no doubt you need a safety. Tavarius Moore isn't it. Darnell Savage is probably going to be in the slot. Who are your true safeties right now? None. That's the correct answer. The Green Bay Packers don't have any. So something has to get done here. I think that this is one position that we're going to see addressed in the draft, but also I wouldn't be shocked at all if they do go out, if their big splash signing is going to be at the safety position. Let's look at one other spot. Another place that I think they're going to have to bring in a free agent, that would be tight end. Robert Tunyon's gone. Mercedes Lewis, probably gone. Because look, even if Lewis doesn't completely follow Rodgers to the Jets, I know he really liked his time in Green Bay, but at this point in his career, Lewis is, I don't want to say ring chasing, but he's going to go in a place where he at least stands a chance, right? And I know I said Green Bay is going for it, but is Mercedes Lewis going to look at Green Bay and say, Rodgers is gone, Lazard's gone, a lot of my group is gone. Is Green Bay still the place for me to continue that pursuit and guarantee myself being a contender? Probably not. So then he goes elsewhere. Okay, so at the tight end position, you've got Josiah DeGuara, who the Packers really seem to prefer just as an H-back, and they did just re-sign Tyler Davis, who's a special teamer, mostly. Yeah, that's it. I know this is a very, very good draft class for tight ends, and there's a number that may be appealing to the Packers. Sam Laporta, Washington, even in the first round, Meyer, Kincaid. It's a very, very good draft for tight ends. But I see this being a position that Brian Gutekunst could do his patented stack, meaning draft a high-leverage rookie and sign a free agent. We've seen him do it at numerous positions. I've talked about it before, numerous positions across the team before, and I think tight end is that position this year. Keep in mind especially that rookie tight ends are some of the slowest position groups to really adapt to the NFL game because they're asked to do so much more in the NFL. So you're really going to spend your first round pick on a tight end, even if he's the most NFL ready one, like a Michael Mayer, and then bank on him to be the guy? Probably not, which means you're bringing in a vet. And if we're going to follow true to form, the type of free agent that Brian Gutekunst most likes to bring in, there are two candidates out there, both of them coming off of their rookie contract. Both of them, for different reasons, haven't necessarily had the chance to shine like they otherwise might have if they were featured players. This is Brian Gutekunst's type. Young guys coming off of a rookie contract that he can sign to an elevated contract above a rookie contract, but guys that become a bargain after they become a full-time starter for a year. We've seen it before. And so I got two guys here. One from LA, Foster Moreau. Look, Foster Moreau is going to be 26 years old in a couple of weeks. He grades out superiorly to Robert Tonyan, grades out better than the other tight end I'm going to mention. Last year he had 33 catches, 420 yards, 2 touchdowns, while being the feature tight end for a bit while Waller was hurt, but being the backup when Waller was in. He had a RAS score in college of 9.45. Like, if Brian Gutekunst was shopping right now, Foster Moreau is that guy. Here's one slight concern, though. SportTrack right now has him at a market valuation of approximately $9 million a year. That's out of budget for the Packers. But as we've seen in free agency thus far, the tight end market is actually kind of a depressed market. Dalton Schultz hasn't signed yet. Cameron Brate just got added to the market. So tight ends aren't necessarily going for what a lot of people thought that they were going to. Which means if you can get him under $9 million, get him something more reasonable that you can afford, this could be an attainable signing for the Green Bay Packers. However, another kind of discredit here is the Raiders, shortly after trading Waller, have a lot of interest in bringing back Moreau to be their starting tight end. Makes it kind of tough because the Packers can't afford to get into a bidding war. But still, if I'm Brian Gutekunst, my number one player that I'm going for at the tight end position is Foster Moreau. Also, just in terms of blocking, he's a substantial upgrade over Robert Tonyan, at least per PFF's grading. So bear that in mind. The other one, tight end number 2. We're going to pull a Vikings here and take one of theirs, Irv Smith. Look, Irv Smith is 24 years old. Similar to Moreau, he's priced by SportTrack, at least, out of the Packers' range. He's priced at about $10 million annually. Of course, that's out of budget. I just don't see how a team could justify paying Smith $10 million right now. And I say that because Smith is, in the last 2 years, hasn't exactly had tremendous production. This year, he had 25 catches, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Vikings traded a haul for TJ Hawkinson because Irv Smith had both productivity and injury issues. But if you're the Green Bay Packers and you're a team of in transition with no money, you've got to take some high upside flyers to get productivity. And Irv Smith could be that for you. He's still incredibly young at 24 years old. Overall, though, I think you can make the argument that he's an ascending player. And this is Brian Gutekunst's type. He did miss all of 2021 with a meniscus tear. He missed some time last year with a high ankle sprain. Of course, Packer fans are a little reticent to bring on guys with a bunch of injury history, of course. But what are you going to do at tight end? So I think he at least warrants consideration because, like Moreau, he fits the category of potentially ascending, coming off the rookie contract, and adding some receiving prowess and some athleticism to your offense. So there you go. Bring back Amos is certainly an option to fix the safety position, at least part way. Or how about John Johnson from Cleveland? At tight end, Irv Smith, Foster Moreau. In terms of a vet wide receiver, I see that more likely being a trade per who's out there on the market. It's nobody. The wide receiver market is ugly. So I see the Packers more likely addressing that spot in a trade. In terms of if you want a veteran quarterback to be the backup to Jordan Love, sure, maybe, but again, that could be a trade, and I'm not even sure they're going to do it. I could see the Packers just rolling with a draft pick and letting Love completely control the room. Because even then, a lot of the veteran QBs who you may want to be the backup, like a Matt Ryan or someone like that, is probably going to be more expensive than the Packers can afford. So lots and lots and lots of questions about the Green Bay Packers right now. Certainly more than we can answer today, but if you're looking at free agency and you're going, oh no, who's left? Here's 4 candidates at 2 positions that very well might be Packer people. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'll be back on Monday covering more topics. We may dive into draft stuff soon. Now that the Rodgers stuff seems to be coming to a close and free agency is slowing down, we may really dive into the draft soon. In addition, you may hear from me sooner if the compensation package for Rodgers is agreed to, finalized, done. Other than that, we'll see. For sure, I'll be back Monday. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and as always, go Pack Go.